What would you sacrifice in silence, if no one was watching? Carol moved through the long hours with a steady rhythm, never once letting the weight of her exhaustion reach her smile. She was only 26, yet her days stretched between two worlds, cash register and caregiving. Every shift ended with her rushing home to her mother's fragile body, worn thin by dialysis, and every break filled with thoughts of her 5-year-old daughter waiting in someone else's care. Her dreams had once carried her toward nursing. She studied late into the night, worked double hours, believed she could change lives. But that future collapsed the day her father's accident left him in a coma and buried her family under debt they could never escape. School ended, bills began, and survival became her only pursuit. Still, Carol never faltered in the way she greeted people. Each customer was thanked with quiet sincerity, each coworker passed with a nod of courtesy, even as her own body begged for rest. Among them walked Nathan, another name tag, another clipboard. No one questioned him, no one really noticed him. He was said to be part of the inventory team, yet in truth he carried a role far heavier, the chief financial officer, hidden in plain sight, searching for answers buried in numbers. Sometimes love is measured in what we give away. Carol slipped away quietly when her break arrived. She opened her bag, pulled out a sandwich wrapped in foil and a small carton of juice, then folded them into a paper bag with a napkin. Her stomach tightened, but she didn't pause. She put on her coat and left, walking quickly with determined steps. At the door of Mrs. Grant's apartment, a small figure rushed forward. "Hi, Mama." Carol bent low, arms around her daughter, holding her as if the world might steal her away. "Eat this first." "Okay. Mommy already ate at work." Anna's smile widened as she clutched the bag, already running back inside with her sandwich in one hand, her crayon in the other. Carol stayed a moment longer, watching the door, then turned back with her face composed, as though nothing had been given up. From a distance, Nathan had followed. He saw it all, the quick lie spoken with love, the food placed into small hands while none remained for her. He pulled the small notebook from his pocket and wrote carefully. Carol Cashier gave her only lunch to her daughter. Said nothing, ate nothing. The truest kindness is given when no one else is looking. After her shift, Carol walked with the same quiet pace she always carried, no sign of complaint, no sign of pride. Nathan kept at a distance, not out of suspicion, but because something about her silence demanded to be understood. He watched as she opened a small bag of food, kneeling to pour a handful for a stray cat that limped toward her. She whispered softly to it, words no one else could hear. A moment later, an elderly woman struggled with a cart at the curb. Carol hurried over, steady hands lifting the weight without hesitation. "No problem," she said gently, and then continued on her way, offering no glance back, no need for recognition. Nathan froze. He opened his notebook again, pressing his pen harder this time. "She's kind, even when no one sees. Not just a family, to everyone." The pages had begun as figures and audits, but tonight they no longer felt like numbers. They were pieces of a life he could not look away from, evidence not of fraud, but of a humanity rare enough to change the air around her. The quiet ones are often the easiest to push. Tina's voice always carried sharp edges, and those edges seemed to find Carol every time. The late shifts, the spill cleanups, the extra hours when someone else didn't show, every burden was passed down the line until it landed on her shoulders. Carol never pushed back. She signed the slips, nodded at the changes, bent to pick up what others dropped. Not once did she raise her voice, not once did she remind Tina how blistered her feet were or how long the hours stretched. From a corner, Nathan watched and wrote. Each note was colder than he meant it to be, each line trying to stay objective. Supervisor assigns hardest tasks to Carol. Breaks cut short. Hours shaved down. But the more he wrote, the harder it was to pretend this was only about numbers. Her silence was not weakness. It was survival. Yet to everyone else, it made her the perfect target. Sometimes salvation comes in the smallest gestures. One morning, a second cup of coffee appeared on the counter near Carol's register. Nathan set it down with a casual shrug. I accidentally got two. Want one? She hesitated, then smiled softly. Are you sure? Too much caffeine makes me jittery. Help me out. It became a quiet rhythm after that. A granola bar tucked near her locker. Another coffee left without explanation. She never asked, but Nathan saw her glance around when she arrived, as if searching for the quiet giver. Then came the rain. Carol stood by the lockers, coat zipped, staring at the storm outside. No umbrella. No easy way home. The next day, she found one leaning against her locker. A folded scrap of paper tucked into the handle read simply, "For the walk home." Her fingers lingered on it, almost afraid it might vanish. A whisper slipped from her lips, half to herself, half to the empty hallway. Probably him again. It wasn't a confession, just an acknowledgement. And in that small, fragile bond, the silence around her no longer felt so absolute. When you're broken, even one gentle truth can hold you up. The shift had been long, and Carol sat in the back room with her elbows on her knees, her head bowed. Her shoulders trembled, but no tears came. Just silence. Nathan passed her, then stopped, turning back. He set a bottle of water down beside her and crouched low. You okay? She didn't lift her head. Just tired. He nodded slowly. Don't let anyone decide your worth based on the uniform you're wearing. Some people wear suits and forget how to be decent. Some wear aprons and hold the world together. Her eyes rose, rimmed red, startled by the gentleness in his voice. She looked away quickly. Thanks. That night, Anna ran into her mother's arms. Carol pulled a granola bar from her pocket and handed it to her. Anna squealed with delight. My favorite. Carol kissed her hair. Only the best for you. The little girl hugged her tight and whispered, I'm happy today, Mama, because you didn't have to go hungry. The words hit Nathan like a blow. He wrote with a heavy hand in his notebook. She gives everything she has, even what she does not. Doing the right thing became her greatest crime. Mrs. Halpern's hands shook as she placed a slip of paper on the counter. The order had already been paid for online, but she struggled to wait in the pickup line. Carol glanced at the receipt, smiled, and said softly, Give me 2 minutes. She jogged to the back, lifted the bag herself, and placed it gently in the woman's cart. A grateful smile, a quiet thank you, and the moment was done. An hour later, Carol sat in the back office, her hands trembling as Tina shoved a clipboard toward her. I received a report that you handed a bag of groceries to a customer without scanning the items or logging the pickup. That's a breach of store policy. Carol tried to explain. It was an online order. She had the receipt. I just helped her avoid waiting. She's not well. That is not your call to make, Tina cut in. You bypassed procedure. That's grounds for a written warning. Carol signed with shaking fingers. Later, Nathan pulled the footage, scrolling to the exact moment. He saw Carol checking the receipt, retrieving the pre-packed order, handing it over with nothing hidden, nothing wrong, only kindness. He closed the tab and pressed his pen against the paper. No error, no theft. Tina enforced punishment regardless. The rumor spreads faster than the truth. In the break room, Nathan overheard the low hum of voices. 2 team leads leaned close, whispering about Carol, how she was always the one Tina singled out, always the one blamed. The words were sharp, casual, careless. Later, Max, the part-time stalker, spoke quietly at Nathan's side. She's Tina's favorite punching bag. Always the late shifts, always cleaning up after everyone else. But she never complains. He paused, lowering his voice even further. You could leave $100 in the open. She'd give it back untouched. She's so honest it hurts. Nathan felt the truth sink deep. Her silence, the very thing that showed her strength, was being twisted into weakness. They punished her because they knew she would never fight back. The realization burned into his notes, each word heavier than the last. This time, the stakes weren't minutes or meals, it was everything. The store was nearly empty when Carol balanced her register for the night, counting twice, careful as always. Then the intercom cracked. "Carol, back office now." Tina's voice was cold, clipped. Inside, a security officer stood beside her. Tina slid a paper across the desk. "We ran your drawer totals. The cash count came back short. Exactly $1,000. You were the last one in the vault. And conveniently, the camera feed from 8:15 to 8:30 is missing." Carol's breath caught. "That's not possible. I counted everything twice." "Wait, Tina, please. I didn't take anything. I would never." "You've got motive," Tina cut in, her tone sharp. "A sick mother. A child. Hospital debt. This isn't personal. It's procedure. Effective immediately, you're suspended." Her badge and apron felt heavy in her hands as she walked the aisles, coworkers staring, whispers already spreading. She got caught. $1,000. Always the quiet ones. In the locker room, she sat frozen before shutting her locker door with a hollow clang. Then she locked herself in the restroom stall and slid to the floor. The sobs came in silence, wave after wave, leaving her small and trembling. Outside the door, Nathan stood still, fists clenched around the notebook he carried. He had heard it all, the accusation, the glitch, the rumors, her broken voice. His jaw tightened, fury boiling under the surface, but he didn't move. Some grief was too sacred to interrupt. The lie was loud. But the numbers whispered the truth. That night, Nathan no longer wore the mask of the quiet temp. At his desk, as chief financial officer, he pulled up every log the system could give him: shift records, vault access, override codes, maintenance reports. Hours blurred into lines of data, but the story unfolded clearly. At 8:24 p.m., minutes after Carol locked the vault, a phantom login appeared: T124 override. A user ID that did not exist in any schedule. The vault had been entered again. The camera feed, marked as a technical glitch, traced back to Tina's authorization. The final blow was a reimbursement transaction, exactly $1,000, wired to a private vendor account connected to her name. Nathan leaned back, the notebook heavy in his hand. Carol had been broken by a lie, but the truth was now written in numbers that could not be denied. He picked up his phone, his voice cold and steady. "Schedule an all-store meeting tomorrow at 9. Mandatory. I will be there in person." The man no one noticed was about to change everything. "You've got motive," Tina cut in, her tone sharp. "A sick mother. A child. Hospital debt. This isn't personal. It's procedure. Effective immediately, you're suspended." Her badge and apron felt heavy in her hands as she walked the aisles, coworkers staring, whispers already spreading. She got caught. $1,000. Always the quiet ones. In the locker room, she sat frozen before shutting her locker door with a hollow clang. Then she locked herself in the restroom stall and slid to the floor. The sobs came in silence, wave after wave, leaving her small and trembling. Outside the door, Nathan stood still, fists clenched around the notebook he carried. He had heard it all, the accusation, the glitch, the rumors, her broken voice. His jaw tightened, fury boiling under the surface, but he didn't move. Some grief was too sacred to interrupt. The lie was loud. But the numbers whispered the truth. That night, Nathan no longer wore the mask of the quiet temp. At his desk, as chief financial officer, he pulled up every log the system could give him: shift records, vault access, override codes, maintenance reports. Hours blurred into lines of data, but the story unfolded clearly. At 8:24 p.m., minutes after Carol locked the vault, a phantom login appeared, T124, override. A user ID that did not exist in any schedule. The vault had been entered again. The camera feed, marked as a technical glitch, traced back to Tina's authorization. The final blow was a reimbursement transaction, exactly $1,000, wired to a private vendor account connected to her name. Nathan leaned back, the notebook heavy in his hand. Carol had been broken by a lie, but the truth was now written in numbers that could not be denied. He picked up his phone, his voice cold and steady. Schedule an all-store meeting tomorrow at 9. Mandatory. I will be there in person. The man no one noticed was about to change everything. The break room buzzed with whispers the next morning. Some said the quiet temp had been fired, others claimed he was corporate, but no one knew for certain. Tina stood near the front, clipboard in hand, confidence painted across her face. Carol lingered in the back, pale, her fingers twisting the strap of her old bag as the murmurs about her theft circled the room. Then Nathan stepped forward, not in a polo and cap, but in a pressed suit. He clipped an ID to his jacket, the room falling silent as the letters came into focus. Nathan Rodas, Chief Financial Officer. Good morning, his voice was calm but unyielding. Some of you knew me as Nathan, the inventory temp. That was only part of the story. I came here as part of an audit. What I found was more than numbers. I found a culture where silence was mistaken for guilt, where decency was overlooked, and where one of our most honorable employees was nearly destroyed by a lie. Gasps rippled as he turned his gaze to Carol. Then his tone sharpened. Let me be clear. Carol was falsely accused of theft. A fake ID accessed the vault minutes after her. The cameras were disabled under Tina's authorization. The stolen amount was routed to a private account connected to her alias. Do you need me to continue? Tina's face drained of color, her lips parting but no words coming. Nathan's voice carried through the stunned silence. Sometimes the kindest people are the easiest to accuse because they never fight back. That ends today. Applause began, small at first, then growing louder until it filled the room. Carol stood frozen, her eyes wet, as Nathan declared Tina suspended pending investigation and restored Carol with full compensation. For the first time in weeks, she could breathe. Sometimes the hardest thing to accept is being seen. A soft knock at the door pulled Carol from her thoughts. She opened it to find Nathan standing there, sleeves rolled, a paper bag in his hands. His voice was low. I owe you an apology, for watching and waiting when I should have spoken sooner. Before she could answer, Anna peeked out from behind her legs, a crayon drawing in one hand and a crooked cookie in the other. She held it up proudly. I made cookies. And Mommy says you helped her. You're the first grown-up who ever did. Nathan crouched, taking the cookie with care. Then this is the most important cookie I've ever received. Carol laughed softly, her guard breaking for the first time in days. They sat together for a while, small voices filling the quiet, until Nathan reached into his bag and placed an envelope on the table. At headquarters, we're launching a program called Empathy First, financial support for employees in crisis. Medical bills, housing, school supplies. I need someone who knows what those struggles feel like. This is a formal offer. Part-time to start, with full benefits. Carol's hands trembled. I don't have the degree. Nathan shook his head gently. You don't need one. You've been running a master class in grace under pressure for years. That counts. Then, from his coat pocket, he pulled the small notebook he had carried for weeks. He opened it carefully, showing her the pages. I kept notes, not just on money, on people. This, he pointed to one line, the day I saw you give your lunch away. And here, the day you helped Mrs. Halpern when no one else would. He placed it in her hands. On the final page, one sentence was underlined. If anyone should be trusted to run a fund built on dignity, it's her. Carol pressed her hand to her mouth, tears filling her eyes, not for the offer, but for the proof that someone had truly seen her. She once thought survival was enough. Now she was asked to lead. Carol stepped into her new role with steady hands, her name now printed on an ID badge that read Empathy First Program Coordinator. The inbox filled quickly, pleas from employees she once stood beside. A clerk asking for help with insulin for a child. A janitor hoping for bus fare to keep his job. A single parent struggling with school supplies. Each message carried the same fear she had lived, and each one received her full attention. She didn't just process requests, she remembered. The empty dinners, the skipped meals, the nights where every bill felt like a cliff she couldn't climb. Now, she was the one answering, offering what she once wished for, a hand that didn't let go. Anna grew close to Nathan, her laughter spilling whenever he arrived with books or board games. She started calling him Uncle N, a name that slipped easily into their home. Carol smiled the first time she heard it, though she never spoke of what it stirred inside her. Nathan kept a secret of his own. Hidden behind a stack of ledgers in his office sat a small framed drawing, 3 stick figures, hand in hand, with the words scrawled above, me, mommy, and Uncle N. On the hardest days, when numbers blurred and meetings weighed heavy, he glanced at that picture and remembered why Empathy First had begun. From invisible cashier to voice on the stage. Carol stood before the crowd, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the microphone. Her eyes found Anna in the front row, swinging her feet, and then flicked to Nathan, watching with quiet pride. She drew a slow breath. A year ago, I was working a late shift, wondering how I would pay for my mother's next treatment. I was tired, invisible, and scared. I was also accused of something I didn't do. And for a while, I believed that maybe that was just how life goes for people like me. But someone saw me. Not just the mistake they thought I made. Not just the uniform I wore. He saw the whole picture. Her voice faltered, but the silence in the room held her steady. Applause followed, warm and rising, carrying her words higher than she ever thought they would reach. Nathan stepped next to her, adjusting the mic. His tone was steady, certain. When I joined this company, I thought being a CFO meant protecting numbers, saving margins, maximizing efficiency. But then I met Carol. She taught me that sometimes the greatest thing we can protect isn't a budget. It's people. And when we protect the right people, they do extraordinary things. The room surged to its feet in a standing ovation, clerks, drivers, managers, every role united not by profit, but by grace. The applause echoed, but another question lingered. Anna wriggled free from her seat and ran toward the stage. She wrapped her arms around Nathan's waist, then turned and clung tightly to her mother. Cameras flashed, catching the 3 of them together, bound not by titles but by trust. Carol reached out, her hand brushing against Nathan's as they stood side by side. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was simply surviving. She felt like she had arrived. But as the lights dimmed and the ovation faded, Nathan's gaze held a weight no one else could see. He knew exposing Tina was only the beginning. The real test of Empathy First had yet to come, tests that would measure not just balance sheets, but courage, loyalty, and the cost of standing against a system that didn't always value the people at its heart. The story closed not in peace, but in the sharp anticipation of battles still waiting, corporate, personal, and moral, just beyond the edge of the light.